The wind cut through the broken gap under the Chicago overpass like it had teeth. Mark Davis pulled his thin blanket tighter and felt the concrete steal his warmth anyway. His stomach had that dull ache that never fully went away anymore. Cars roared above him in endless waves of sound and light. Their headlights flashed across his face like distant lightning. He stared at the dark stain on the concrete and tried not to think about food. A half-empty coffee cup sat beside him, cold now, from the church truck earlier. It tasted like burnt water, but he drank it slow anyway. It was something warm that morning, even if it lied about being coffee. Mark was 42 years old. He used to fix HVAC systems in office buildings downtown. Now he counted hours by traffic noise and hunger waves. He pushed himself up slowly from the ground. His elbows hurt every morning now. Still, he did his push-ups, 10 of them, every single day. Even here, even under this bridge, even when people walked past and pretended he was not there. "Still doing that, huh?" a voice called out. It was Ray, a guy who slept 20 feet away near the pillar. Older, gray-beard, always carrying a backpack that looked too heavy. "Yeah," Mark said without looking up. "You think that's going to get you a job?" Mark wiped his hands on his jeans. "It keeps me from disappearing." Ray laughed once. No humor in it, just air leaving a tired body. The morning smell under the bridge was always the same. Damp concrete. Old trash, exhaust from the highway above, and cold that never left your bones. Mark stood and looked toward the street opening. Chicago winter still clung to everything, even in early spring. The kind of cold that made your ears burn. He remembered a different morning once. A kitchen, a mug that didn't crack, a phone that didn't have a broken screen. That version of his life felt like it belonged to someone else now. A bus passed overhead. He watched it through the gaps in the road above. People inside looked warm, faces close to windows, coffee cups in hands. He wondered if any of them ever looked down and saw him. Most didn't. That was how it worked. A week earlier, he had tried the downtown shelter again. Full again. Always full now. "You gotta come earlier," the worker had said. "I was here at 5, Mark answered. "Still not early enough," she said, not even looking at him. She handed him a paper with numbers on it like it meant something. Mark folded it and kept it anyway. Paper meant hope sometimes, even when it lied. He walked now toward the street corner where the soup truck usually stopped. His shoes had holes in the sides. Water had gotten in 2 days ago and never fully left. Every step reminded him. Every step cost him. A man in a suit passed him on the sidewalk above the underpass exit. The man didn't look down, not once. Mark didn't blame him anymore. He used to. Now he just noticed it. That was different. At the corner, a small line had already formed. 4 people, then 5, then 6. A woman in a red coat stood near the front. She nodded at Mark when he arrived. "Morning, Mark," she said. "Morning, Lena," he replied. She was the only one who remembered his name sometimes. "You sleep at the bridge again?" she asked. "Same place as always." She frowned a little. Not judgment, just worry. "You ever think about moving closer to the West Shelter?" "It's the same story," he said, "just a different wall." She handed him a small paper bowl when the truck arrived. Soup. Thin. Hot. He wrapped his hands around it like it mattered more than it should. It did. Lena watched him eat. "You still looking for work?" "Every day," he said. "You got that HVAC experience still on your resume?" "I still got the skills, too." She nodded like she believed him. But belief didn't pay rent. Mark had learned that the hard way. It had started 2 years ago. Maybe a little more. He could still see the exact Tuesday in his head. The job site in downtown Chicago had been loud that morning. Metal ducts, drills, orders shouted over radios. His supervisor called him into the trailer. "We're cutting down crews," the man said. Mark blinked. "I've been here 8 years." "I know." "That's it?" The man didn't answer fast enough. That was the answer. A week later, his wife signed papers he didn't want to read. Divorce. House sold. Quick split. "I can't do this with you unemployed," she said. He stood in the kitchen that night holding a glass of water he didn't drink. His daughter, Emily, was upstairs, 11 years old then. He wanted to go up and explain everything in a way that didn't break her. He never found the words. Then came the medical bills. Back pain turned into surgery. Surgery turned into debt. Debt turned into eviction. The apartment door closed behind him on a Thursday morning. He carried 2 bags and a broken toolbox. That was all. Ray's voice pulled him back under the bridge. "You ever call your kid?" Mark tightened his jaw. "Sometimes." "That ain't a yes." Mark didn't answer. He had a rule now. Thursdays. He called Emily on Thursdays, even if she didn't pick up, even if the voicemail felt like talking into a wall. It was the only thing he kept from his old life, a thread he refused to cut. Later that afternoon, he walked to the library on 47th Street. Warm air hit him when he walked in. It almost hurt. The librarian, Mrs. Collins, looked up. "You here for the computers again?" she asked. "Resume work," Mark said. She nodded. "You got 2 hours." "That's more than I got outside," he said. She didn't smile, just turned back to her desk. He sat at a computer with a slow screen and started again. HVAC technician, 8 years experience, commercial systems. He stared at the gaps in his timeline. Then he filled them with words that sounded like someone else's life. He didn't lie. He just left things out. A man across from him was applying for warehouse jobs. A kid near the window was watching YouTube tutorials about coding. Everyone there was building something out of broken pieces. Mark wasn't special, but he wasn't done either. At closing time, Mrs. Collins walked over. "You print anything?" she asked. "Not yet." "You keep at it," she said. "People don't stay invisible forever." He wanted to believe that. Outside, the air hit him hard again. Chicago wind never asked permission. He walked back toward the bridge. Halfway there, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then he answered. "Hello?" A pause. Then a small voice. "Dad?" His chest tightened instantly. "Emily?" "Mom said I could call you back." Mark leaned against a wall. "Hey, kid," he said softly. Silence on the other end. "I got a B on my math test," she said finally. "That's good," he said quickly. "That's really good." Another pause. "You still outside?" she asked. He closed his eyes. "Yeah," he said. Silence again. Longer this time. "I miss you," she said. His throat locked. "I miss you too," he managed. Then her mother's voice in the background. "Emily, time's up." "Bye, Dad," she said fast. The line ended. Mark stood there long after the phone went dark. The city moved around him like nothing had changed. But something had. That night, under the bridge, Ray watched him sit down. "You look different," Ray said. "I talked to my daughter." Ray nodded slowly. "That'll do it." Mark lay back on the concrete. The cold came up through him like memory. Above, cars kept moving. He thought about the resume on the library computer. He thought about Emily's voice. He thought about mornings that didn't feel like survival. Something inside him shifted. Not hope yet. Something before hope. A decision forming in silence. He pulled his blanket tighter. "I'm getting out of this," he said quietly. Ray turned his head. "Everybody says that." Mark stared at the dark above him. "I mean it this time." Ray didn't answer. Just the sound of traffic. Just wind. Just Chicago holding its breath and not caring. Mark closed his eyes, but didn't sleep right away. For the first time in a long time, tomorrow felt like something he might actually reach. Not survive. Reach. And somewhere deep in that thought, something dangerous and alive started to grow. He didn't know what it would cost yet, but he was about to find out. The night stretched long and cold, and for the first time in years, Mark Davis didn't feel invisible. He felt like something was coming, something he had to meet head on. He just didn't know what shape it would take. The bridge hummed above him, and the city kept moving like it always did, like it always would, until it didn't. He turned onto his side, eyes open in the dark, and waited for morning like it might finally be different. Morning came the same way it always did under the bridge. Cold air first, then traffic sound. Then awareness returning, like a slow bruise. Mark opened his eyes and stared at the concrete ceiling above him. A thin line of light cut through the bridge supports. Dust floated through it like it had nowhere else to go. Ray was already sitting up nearby. He was rolling a cigarette from scraps. "You didn't sleep much," Ray said. "Didn't need much," Mark answered. Ray gave him a long look. "You were talking in your sleep." Mark sat up slowly. "That so?" "Kept saying you're getting out." Mark didn't respond right away. The words felt too exposed in daylight. "Maybe I am," he finally said. Ray smiled a little, not mocking, just tired truth. "Everybody leaves here in their sleep first," Ray said. Mark stood and stretched his back. Pain flared sharp, then faded into the usual ache. He didn't argue. He just started walking toward the street. The library opened at 9. He got there at 9:03. Mrs. Collins looked up from her desk. "You're early today," she said. "I need more time," Mark said. She studied him for a second. Then she slid the computer sign-in sheet forward. "Same rules," she said. "I know," he said. He sat down and opened his resume again. Same screen, same gaps, same silence between years. But something was different now. He wasn't just filling space anymore. He was building something. He printed 3 copies this time. When he stood up, Mrs. Collins called him over. "You got an email address?" she asked. "Old one got shut down," he said. She nodded.
"That's a problem." "I can fix it," he said quickly. She leaned closer. "There's a place hiring HVAC helpers on 51st, she said. Mark froze slightly. "You serious?" "I don't say things I don't mean," she said. He took the paper like it weighed more than it should. Outside, the wind hit harder than before, but it didn't feel the same. It felt like movement. The next morning, he walked 6 miles to the address. His shoes were damp from the night before. The building was small, not downtown, not shiny, just real. Southside Mechanical Services was painted on faded glass. Inside smelled like oil and metal. A man behind the counter looked up. "You here for the helper position?" he asked. "Yes," Mark said. "You got experience?" 8 years HVAC, Mark said. The man leaned back. "Got ID?" Mark pulled it out. "Address?" The man asked next. Mark hesitated. "I'm between places," he said. The man's face changed slightly. "We don't usually hire without stable address," he said. Mark nodded slowly. "I can prove I work," Mark said. The man shrugged. "We'll call you." Mark knew what that meant. He walked out without arguing. First attempt gone. That night under the bridge, Ray noticed the paper in his hand. "No good?" Ray asked. "Not yet," Mark said. Ray nodded. "That's how it starts," he said. Mark didn't sleep much again. The next attempt came 3 days later. A staffing agency on town. Bright lights. Clean floors. Plastic chairs. People filled out forms in silence.
A woman behind glass called names. "Mark Davis?" He stood up fast. She looked at his resume. "You're overqualified for warehouse," she said. "I just need work," he said. She tapped the paper. "We got night shift loading dock," she said. "I'll take it," he said immediately. She slid papers forward. "Start Monday." For a moment, it felt real. Then she pointed to the last line. "Emergency contact and address," she said. Mark paused. "I don't have a stable address right now." Her pen stopped moving. "We need that for payroll and insurance." "I can get one," he said quickly. She shook her head. "Come back when you have it," she said. Second attempt gone. He stood outside the building longer than he should have. People passed him like he wasn't paused in time. That night, Ray watched him sit down harder than usual. "2 in a row?" Ray asked. "Yeah," Mark said. Ray exhaled. "You still standing, though?" Ray said. Mark didn't answer, but he didn't lay down right away either. Third attempt came from Lena. She found him at the soup truck line. "You look worse," she said. "I'm fine," Mark said. She shook her head. "You're not fine." She handed him an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "A guy I know runs a small shop," she said. "He needs help bad." Mark opened it. It was a number and address. "Call him," she said. He did that night from the library phone. A man answered fast. "You know HVAC?" the voice asked. "Yes," Mark said. "Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes," Mark said again. "Show up at 7, the man said. "No paperwork yet," Mark added quickly. "Just show up," the man said. Mark hung up slowly. He didn't even tell Ray that night.
He just held the paper longer than everything else he owned. Morning came sharp. He walked early. Too early. The shop was already open. A man in grease-stained shirt looked him over. "You Davis?" he asked. "Yes." "You late," the man said. Mark checked his watch. 7:02, he said. The man laughed once. "I like honesty," he said. He handed Mark gloves. "Don't slow me down," he said. And just like that, Mark started working again. First day was simple. Old units, rusted ducts, heavy lifting. His body hurt in new ways, but his mind stayed quiet. For the first time in months, he wasn't just surviving the day, he was inside it. At lunch, he sat on a curb eating a sandwich. The boss sat next to him. "You ever been out there?" the man asked. Mark didn't pretend. "Yeah," he said. The man nodded. "Don't bring it in here," he said. "I won't," Mark said, and he meant it. Second week, he got paid cash. Small amount, but real. He held the bills longer than he needed to. Ray looked at them that night. "You made it," Ray said. "Not yet," Mark said. But something in his voice was different. He stopped sleeping under the bridge that week, found a cheap room above a laundromat. Smelled like detergent and old smoke, but it had a lock. First night there, he just sat on the bed staring at the wall. No traffic sound.
No wind under concrete, just silence. He didn't sleep much that night either, but it wasn't fear this time. It was adjustment. Work got harder. Old systems and basements, hot attics, tight crawl spaces. Mark remembered everything faster than anyone expected. "You sure you didn't forget anything?" the boss asked one day. "I didn't forget," Mark said. Words started spreading. "He's solid," one worker said. "He just shows up," another said. But not everything stayed steady. One morning, the staffing agency called. "We need your tax forms updated," they said. "I don't have them yet," Mark said. "Fix it soon," they replied. Then his small room rent went up. Landlord left a note under the door. "Cash only now. No delay." Pressure started building again. Not like before, but close enough to feel familiar. One Friday, his boss pulled him aside. "You're good," he said, "but you move like someone who's still outside." Mark didn't answer. The boss continued. "You ever think about union work?" Mark looked up. "That's not easy to get into," he said. "Nothing worth it is," the boss replied. He handed him a number. "Call this guy," he said. That weekend, Mark stood outside a union hall. Big building, clean steps, locked doors. He waited anyway. A man finally came out. "You here for apprenticeship?" he asked. "Yes," Mark said. "You got references?" "I got experience," Mark said. The man looked him over. "You got a stable address?" Mark hesitated. "Working on it," he said. The man shook his head. "Come back when it's stable," he said. Door closed. Third setback hit harder than the others, because this time he was closer. That night, he didn't go to the bridge. He went to the laundromat room, sat on the bed with his head in his hands, didn't move for a long time. Then he called Emily. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Dad," she said. "Hey," he said. "I've been busy," she said quickly. "It's okay," he said. Silence. "I might get into something better soon," he said. "That's good," she said. Another pause. "I told Mom I'm proud of you," she added. Mark froze. He didn't know what to say to that. "Thanks," he said finally. "I mean it," she said. Then she had to go. The call ended. Mark sat there long after. Something inside him changed again. Not hope, not yet, but direction. The next week, he went back to the union hall. Same door, same steps, same locked entrance. He waited longer this time. When the man came out again, Mark didn't hesitate. "I got stable housing now," he said. The man looked at him. "You sure?" he asked. "Yes," Mark said. The man studied him for a long moment. "Bring proof next time," he said, and walked back inside. Mark stood there after the door closed, but he didn't leave. Because for the first time, the door didn't feel closed forever, just not open yet. He turned back toward the street. The city moved aloud around him, but he didn't feel lost feeling anymore. He felt like he was standing in line for something real. Something he might actually reach, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough to keep walking. Mark didn't sleep much the night before he went back, not because of fear this time, because of preparation. He laid his only clean shirt on the bed, pressed it flat with his hands like it mattered, like it could change how the world saw him. The laundromat room was quiet at dawn, too quiet sometimes. It made his thoughts louder than traffic ever did. He checked his phone again. Same time, same message in his head.
bring proof. Proof meant everything now. Proof meant you belonged somewhere. He walked early through Southside Chicago streets. The air still carried night cold. Streetlights were still on in daylight's early fight. He held a folder under his arm. Inside was his lease paper. Cheap room above a laundromat, but real enough. That word stayed in his mind. Real. He reached the Union Hall before sunrise fully broke. Same steps, same locked doors, same silence behind glass. He waited. A man in a dark jacket came out again. Same one as before. You again, the man said. Yes, Mark answered. You got what I asked? Mark handed the folder over. The man flipped through slowly. Lease, ID, pay stub from the shop. He stopped at the pay stub. You've been working, he said. Yes. For how long? Almost 2 months, Mark said. The man looked up. Why didn't you say that before? I wanted to be sure I could stay, Mark said. The man studied him longer this time.
Not judging, measuring. Finally, he closed the folder. You still want apprenticeship? He asked. Yes, Mark said, no hesitation. The man nodded once. Be here Monday, 6 a.m. Don't be late. Mark didn't move for a second. He just stood there, like his body needed time to catch up with the words. Thank you, he said finally. The man already turned away. No celebration, no speech. Just a door that stayed open this time. Mark walked down the steps slowly. Each step felt lighter and heavier at the same time, like something old was falling off him and something new hadn't fully arrived yet. That first Monday came too fast. He stood outside the Union Hall before dawn, hands cold, stomach tight. Other men gathered too, younger, older, different faces. Some looked confident, some looked tired like him. A supervisor came out. Apprentices line up, he said. They moved. Mark moved with them. Inside, everything smelled like metal and paper, forms, helmets, boots, names being called. When his name came up, he answered loud, Mark Davis. A clipboard tapped. You start today, the supervisor said. No applause, just instruction. Don't slow us down. Same words as before, but this time they didn't feel like warning. They felt like entry. Workdays changed everything again. Now it wasn't just repair jobs, it was training, learning systems from scratch again. Commercial HVAC, industrial units, code standards. Mark's hands remembered faster than his pride could keep up.
He made mistakes. He fixed them. He stayed late without being asked. One older apprentice watched him one day. You always work like that? The man asked. Like what? Mark said. Like you're trying not to disappear, the man said. Mark didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, Yeah. The man nodded like he understood. Weeks turned into months. His body stopped hurting in the same places. His hands got stronger. His steps got steadier. The laundromat room became smaller in his mind, then unnecessary. One evening, the shop boss pulled him aside again. You're ready for bigger sights, he said. Mark waved his hands. I am? He asked. You've been ready, the man said. That night, Mark stood in front of a mirror in the room. First time really looking at himself in a long time. Face thinner, eyes sharper, but something else too. Not gone, but returning. Recognition. He said his own name out loud. Mark Davis. It sounded real again, like it belonged to someone who still had a place. He thought about Emily. He hadn't told her about union acceptance yet. He wanted to wait until it meant something stable, something lasting, not almost. One Thursday, he called her again. She answered fast, like always. Hey, Dad. Hey, kid. Silence. Then she spoke first. I am applying for college programs, she said. Mark smiled without realizing it. That's good, he said. I think I want engineering, she added. He leaned against the wall. That fits you, he said. You think so? I know so, he said. Another pause. Mom says you're doing better, she said carefully. I am, he said. He didn't add anything else. He didn't need to. There was a different silence this time. Not distance, just time passing honestly. Can I come see you sometime? She asked. Mark closed his eyes. Yes, he said. Soon? She asked. Yes, he said again, and meant it fully. The call ended softer than usual. No rush, no cutting off, just ending, like something normal. Winter came again to Chicago. This time Mark noticed it differently.
not as survival, but as weather. He worked on a downtown high-rise project now. Glass walls, steel frames, real contracts. He stood on scaffolding one morning looking out over the city. Wind hit his face hard, but he stayed steady. A younger apprentice next to him shook his head. "You ever get used to this height?" the kid asked. Mark looked out at the skyline. "No," he said. Then after a pause, "But I stopped being afraid of it." The kid laughed a little. "That's the same thing," he said. Mark shook his head. "No," he said softly. "It's not." That difference mattered more than anything. One evening after work, he went back to the laundromat building. The room was empty now. He had moved out weeks earlier, but he stopped in front of it anyway, just stood there. He remembered sleeping there. Cold nights, quiet thoughts, tight ceiling. He placed his hand on the doorframe, not to hold on, just to acknowledge it.
"You kept me alive," he said quietly. Then he turned away. No anger left there anymore, only distance. Spring came again slowly, and with it, something else. A small office job offer came through Union Connections, supervising apprentice training paperwork. Not field work every day, but responsibility. He took it, because it wasn't escape anymore. It was structure. Emily came to see him that summer. She stood outside the job site fence first, watching workers move through steel and light. Then she spotted him. "Dad?" she called. He turned, and for a second, he didn't move. Not because he didn't recognize her, because he did, too fully. She looked older, stronger in her own way. They met halfway between fence and sidewalk. No dramatic run, no big music moment, just steps. When she reached him, she stopped for a second. "You look different," she said. Mark smiled. "So do you," he said. She laughed, then hugged him, and he didn't hesitate, not even for a second. They stood there longer than either expected. When they pulled back, she looked around. "You really work here?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. She nodded slowly. "That's good," she said. He looked at her for a long time, like memorizing something he never wanted to lose again. Later that day, they sat on a curb near the site, just like old days in reverse. She kicked a small rock. "I remember when I thought you weren't coming back," she said. Mark stayed quiet. "I thought that too," he admitted. She looked at him.
"But you did," she said. He nodded. "I didn't come back all at once," he said. She smiled faintly. "That still counts," she said. He let that sit, because it was true. Months later, he got his certification, official union journeyman. He held the paper in both hands for a long time, not because it was paper, because of what it meant. No one clapped in the room, just signatures, just approval, just entry into something stable enough to stand on. That night, he went back to the city bridge, not to sleep, just to stand. Traffic roared above him like memory. Ray wasn't there anymore. He had moved on months ago, or disappeared into the city like people do. Mark stood under the same concrete, same cold air, but different man inside it. He closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't feel pain there anymore, just history. Then he turned and walked away without looking back. The laundromat room was gone from his life now. The bridge was just a place. Chicago was no longer a weight. It was a map he had learned how to walk again. Final months brought something he never expected fully. Peace in ordinary days. Work, calls, dinner with Emily sometimes. Normal things that once felt impossible. One evening, Emily asked him a question over dinner. "Do you ever think about before?" she asked. Mark thought about it. Not with pain, not with anger, just clarity. "Yeah," he said. "All the time?" "No," he said. "Just enough to remember what it took." She nodded slowly. Then she said something quiet. "I'm glad you didn't stop." Mark looked at her, and for a moment he didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. Outside, Chicago lights stretched across the night. Not perfect, not easy, just alive. And so was he. Later that night, alone for a moment, Mark stood by his window. He thought about everything that had broken him and everything that didn't finish the job. Not luck, not miracle, just steps. One after another, even when they hurt. Even when they didn't seem to matter, they mattered anyway. He spoke quietly into the room. I'm still here. And it felt like the first time that sentence meant something gentle. Not survival, but presence. Not escape, but arrival. He sat down slowly, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was becoming someone. He felt like he already was. A man who had been lost and still found his way forward, even if it took everything, and even if it took time. The moral of it all was simple in a way that didn't feel simple when you're living it. People don't always fall all at once, and they don't always rise all at once either. Most of the time, it's just small decisions stacked on top of pain. Small choices that don't look like much until they become a life again. What matters isn't how far someone falls. It's what they decide to do with the next step after the fall. And maybe the hardest truth is this. Most people are closer to starting again than they think. Closer than fear ever lets them believe.
If you looked at your own life right now, quietly and honestly, what step would you take next if you truly believed it still mattered? And would you take it, even if no one was watching? The story is now complete.